also, I finally got the chance to see Bong Joon-ho's newest film, Parasite, last night. There's so much to talk about this movie, but this movie genre hops a lot and it does it seamlessly. It's very good. There's so much to talk about. There's so much that goes on in this movie, and I can't wait to get into it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Parasite is directed by Bong Joon-ho. This is a Korean film, and Bong Joon-ho has brought us some pretty amazing movies in the past. Some of his more notable and more known ones would be Snowpiercer or Okja, which he did an amazing job with. And kind of similar to Okja, this movie does a lot of social commentary, where the beginning of this movie almost feels like a satire on class. And that's just because this movie basically revolves around two main families. The majority of the movie follows this one family known as the Kims, and the Kims have been living in poverty for a long time. They're pretty much jobless. When they do jobs, it's really low-paying, almost minuscule tasks that they all take on together, which minuscule jobs for low pay, like they're folding pizza boxes, and they're almost being scammed out of their full pay. But yeah, they're pretty much jobless until the son of this family ends up faking his degree with the help of his sister, and he becomes a tutor for this very wealthy family known as the Parks in the movie. And when he gets the job, when he impresses the family, he's slowly able to create aliases for the rest of his family and get them hired by the Parks, basically in different tasks, whether it be tutors, drivers, maids, and they do this in almost like a heist-like fashion. Like the beginning of this movie is kind of starts off, like I said, as a satire. It's pretty funny. It's a comedy. It's like a heist film, but none like you've ever seen before. It's definitely not directed like one. There are amazing build-ups that they do to show this family and how hard they work to get to the point where they're all hired, and they're basically scamming this family right under their noses. And that's one thing that I love too, is it didn't show poverty in kind of a light that we've seen in so many movies, where they're kind of like almost stooges. They're dumb. These people are so resilient. They're scavengers, and in order to be a good scavenger, you have to be really smart, because a bad scavenger is going to die. But these people have been fighting and surviving for a long time, and you really see that in their characters and their willpower. When you're at about a halfway point in this film, I'm not going to go into it because there's big spoilers, but the movie just completely switches tones. It hits you really hard, and it turns into a thriller and like hostage situation for the Kim family. And just like I said, Bong Joon-ho is a master, and I want to say the best when it comes to building up a scene and having a huge payoff for it. He does it brilliantly in this movie so many times. A lot of it too is like, it's really misleading, because in this movie there is a lot of kind of dark humor, not gallows humor, but you kind of sometimes feel guilty for laughing. And then too, some of the humor that they throw in the movie is foreshadowing for events that to come later, where you won't know what foreshadowing is. But what this movie does amazingly is a satire and a piece on class struggle, where everyone in the movie, there is no bad guys, there is no good guys. Everyone in the movie can be classified as a parasite, really, where they're all feeding off of something, whether it be the Kims, who are scamming these rich people, taking their food, doing a whole bunch of things just basically under their noses, where the Parks could care less about the people that they hire, and they care a lot about their image, and they will fire people with just whatever they can come up with, because they have the power to do so, and they don't really care, because it's all about their own self-image. And they're just trying to protect that and grow that and live a life that's so distant from what the Kims are living, which is poverty and almost struggle, because they have everything really easy, or at least that's kind of the picture that it paints for them. The one thing too is, like, the Parks are smart people too. It doesn't paint them as, even though they're being scammed under their noses, they're not dumb people at all, just because of how smart and how crafty the Kims are in deploying their plan against these people. There's just some amazing shots too, that it has really good dialogue on how global warming affects the rich and how it affects the poor, where there's one absolutely stunning scene too, and it also has really good metaphor to it, where basically the higher you rise, the more you stand to lose and the further you can fall. Because there's one amazing scene where they're making their way, it starts to rain, and the Park family, the rich family, is going on about how it's such a blessing to have the rain, even though like it ruined their camping trip. It clears up carbon emissions in the air, it's fresh, it gives them a beautiful sunny day the next day. Whereas the Kims, they're slowly descending basically down a hierarchy to where they live, and the rain just keeps building and building, and they come home to a flooded home. And like while they're having to fight to survive, all of a sudden they come back the next day and they're being talked behind their backs about how bad they smell, and just kind of, they see, the Park family sees this as them being lazy and not properly cleaning themselves, but they were literally fighting for their lives and just a few possessions that mean so much to them, because their house was being filled with sewage and water and all this disgusting stuff, which actually too is foreshadowed in a scene earlier in the movie. This movie, like I said, just has amazing build-ups and tiny little messages that I can't wait to watch it many more times and just pick out all these little things that I maybe didn't notice the first time, or I had to think about to finally get it. But yeah, it's so beautifully crafted in its dialogue, its pacing, its story setting. The house itself that the Parks live in is a character. Like I said, it's kind of, there's a darkness to the house, and even to the Kim's house is a character for itself, where they're almost personifications of each level of the hierarchy that these two families live in. And I really like too how right off at the beginning, there is no really like clear discuss, but it really shows character motivations and why they think what they think, where you can't blame them because of the situations that they're in. You can disagree, but you understand why they think all the things that they do and why they act on them in the ways that they do. Like until kind of the end of the movie, there is no like class rivalry. And when it gets to there, it's not really that. It's just more a breaking point that some of the characters reach. And all the motivations are just shown throughout the entire film. And it's so amazing how, like I said, Bong Joon-ho is a master of building things up and then hitting it right on the head. The dialogue, everything in this movie was so amazing. The one thing too is that this movie feels so real, and it's something that could happen right under your nose. And like the entire time you're just thinking how real this movie is, how real it feels. Some of the shots too, the cinematography just personifies the world that they live in so much in the houses, that it's pretty easy to relate to the movie or kind of see how this could easily happen. Except there is one point at the end of the movie that just feels a little unbelievable, but that barely takes points away from this movie just because of how well it builds up to that point, and it doesn't feel completely implausible for it to happen. And I must say the ending of this movie too is, it doesn't stray away from kind of the dark reality. Like even though it paints itself in such a positive light, there's so many underlying messages and tones in this movie that carry throughout the entire thing, where like I said, the beginning of the movie is really funny, but then there's, when you look back at it, you just realize the dark foreshadowing of all of it. And it's just so brilliantly put together. Movies like Parasite, where it's so dialogue heavy and the cinematography almost becomes a character in itself, where sometimes the dialogue isn't even needed because the acting, the facial expressions, even sometimes too, just the way they move the camera tells you everything you need to know about the scene, about the characters and what they're thinking. And it's one of the reasons why I love movies so much and why I love this movie. There is absolutely one amazing, like talking about build-ups, there's one amazing scene too that I think is going to resonate me for a long time just because of how well they built it up, was when they're trying to get the mother hired as a maid. Everything from the characters acting to the music, which is stellar throughout this movie. Bong Joon-ho actually wrote a lot of it, so major props to this guy. He did so much for this movie. And I've also heard too that he kind of took a little bit of this movie from his own experiences as being a tutor for a rich family when he was younger. So it's been resonating with him for a long time, and you can tell that when it comes to his films, it's a story that he needs to tell, and he has so much passion for it. And you see that in everything from the music to the cinematography to the acting to the script. It's just absolutely brilliant. And that's why I have to give Parasite a 10 out of 10. It's unbelievable. It's one of the movies that I think everyone should see just because of its dialogues, its underlying messages, its filming. It's just for the film lovers. And there's just so many times I was watching it where I really saw myself. I wanted to make movies and do angles like this guy did. It inspired me so much to just kind of want to pursue passions and just how can I do stuff like this, because it's so unique in every single way, from the storytelling to the camera angles, and it's just, like I said, there's so much love and passion put into this film, and that's why I have such a big passion and love for it. But yeah, please let me know what you guys think of this video. As always, thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe. You can click my channel to see more if you want to see more. But yeah, awesome guys, go see Parasite. It is an unbelievable film.